Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling something massive. And when I say massive, I don't just mean, the page count. I mean the cultural footprint.
It's foundational.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are looking at what might be the original blockbuster sequel. I saw one source call it Troy Story 2, which I have to admit made me laugh out loud.
It's actually a surprisingly good way to frame it. I mean, if the Iliad is the epic, gritty war movie, this is the bizarre 10-year road trip movie from hell that comes after.
Exactly. We are talking about the Odyssey. And I just want to set the table here because, if you haven't read this since high school or maybe pretended to read it in high school, you probably just remember a guy on a boat fighting monsters.
The Cyclops, maybe the Sirens, the greatest hits.
The greatest hits, right. But digging into these sources again, it is so much messier and, frankly, weirder than that. We're talking about a hero who lies to pretty much every single person he meets.
It's his default setting.
He cheats on his wife with multiple goddesses, lets his entire crew die around him.
A truly terrible manager.
And he takes 10 years to complete a trip that, according to Google Maps, is basically a 2-week sail.
He takes the ultimate scenic route. But, that journey is also the foundational text for the entire Western idea of a homecoming.
That's the word nostos. So our mission today is to narrate this entire story from start to finish. But we're not just doing a plot summary. The sources all emphasize that the Odyssey isn't just about what happens.
No, it's about how it's told.
Right. It's a narrative puzzle. It's nonlinear. It's full of flashbacks. It jumps all over the place.
It's constructed with this incredible sophistication. It's almost cinematic, really, in how it cuts between different storylines and timelines. But before we even get on the boat with the monsters, we have to talk about the architect.
Homer.
The Homeric question, as it's known.
Oh, right. The big question of who actually wrote this thing. Because we all say Homer, but that name is a bit of a placeholder, isn't it?
It is. We know almost nothing about him. I mean, zero concrete facts. Tradition says he was a blind bard, a singer of tales, probably from Chios or somewhere in Ionia.
And he was writing. When, exactly?
Well, writing is the tricky word.
Yeah.
The poems were likely composed and written down around 750 to 650 BCE. But here's the friction point, the part that's so hard to wrap your head around. The events he's describing, the Trojan War, the Bronze Age heroes, that's all happening way back around 1200 BCE.
Wait, so that's a 400 or 500 year gap.
A huge gap.
That's like me today writing a detailed epic story about, I don't know, the Wars of the Roses, but doing it entirely from memory with nothing written down.
Precisely. And that's the key phrase, nothing written down. This comes from an oral tradition. These poems were composed to be performed, to be sung, not read silently from a page.
And they had a specific rhythm for that, right? A kind of beat.
They did. Dactylic hexameter.
Okay, dactylic hexameter. It sounds like a dinosaur. What does that actually mean for someone listening to the story back then?
Think of it as the poem's heartbeat. The 6-beat line, it goes dm-da-da, dm-da-da, dm-da-da. It has this very hypnotic, trance-like quality. But more importantly, it functions as a kind of coding language for the bard.
A coding language. How so?
Well, you know how when you read the text, you see all these repeated phrases? Rosy-fingered Dawn, swift-footed Achilles, gray-eyed Athena.
Yeah, I just thought that was like lazy writing. We get it, Homer. The Dawn has fingers.
It's the opposite of lazy. It's a survival mechanism. The bard isn't memorizing millions of words verbatim. That's impossible. He's improvising using a toolkit of prefabricated meter-fitting phrases.
So it's like having a bunch of Legos.
That's a perfect analogy. He has a whole box of Lego bricks he knows by heart. If he needs to describe the morning and he has a DM-to-DAS-sized hole at the end of a line, he can just slot in rosy-fingered Dawn. It fits perfectly every time. It allows him to compose this massive, complex story on the fly.
So it's basically freestyle rap, but with incredibly strict structural rules.
That's a very, very apt comparison.
Okay, so if the Iliad, Homer's first big hit, was about the Trojan War, how do we contrast that with the Odyssey? Because the whole feeling, the whole vibe, is completely different.
That is the crucial distinction to make right at the top. The Iliad is a poem about force. The Greek word for it is bai. It's about raw power, brute strength, and rage, specifically the rage or menes of Achilles.
It's a tragedy.
It's a total tragedy set in a very concentrated period of just a few weeks during a 10-year war. It's about dying young and leaving a beautiful corpse. The Odyssey, on the other hand, it's a comedy.
A comedy with all the death and monsters.
In the classical sense, yeah. A story that ends not in death, but in reunion and restoration.
Mm.
It's also a romance, an adventure story. And its central value is not buy, not force. It's Matisse,
Medesis, and that's cunning, right? Trickery.
cunning intelligence, strategy, traps, deception, thinking your way out of a problem you can't fight your way out of. It's about the hero Odysseus, the man of twists and turns.
Ah.
The Greek for that is polytropos.
Polytropos.
It means much traveled, sure, but it also means many-sided, resourceful, wily. Odysseus is never the strongest guy in the room, but he's always, always the smartest.
And his goal isn't glory in battle anymore. It's something else.
It's Nostos.
Homecoming, which is where we get our word nostalgia, the pain, the algos of longing for home.
Exactly. So our whole deep dive today is about tracking this Nostos, this long, painful journey home. But here is the very first narrative twist, the first sign of that metis in the storytelling itself. The story doesn't start at the beginning.
No, it starts, as they say, in medias res.
Latin for in the middle of things.
Right. If you pick up the Odyssey for the first time, you are not going to see the Trojan horse. You're not going to see the Cyclops. Not for a long, long time.
No. You open the book, and it's year 20. The war's been over for a decade. Odysseus has been gone for 2 decades total. And we don't even meet him.
We meet his mess.
We see the giant hole he left behind in the world.
Which brings us to segment 1, the setup. Because while Odysseus is off, having his supposed adventures, his entire life back home in Ithaca is collapsing. We start with his son, Telemachus.
Yes. The first 4 books are often called the Telemachy, the story of Telemachus. And you have to feel for this kid. He was a tiny baby when Odysseus left for Troy. He's now 20 years old.
So he's never known his father.
Never. His dad is just this legendary ghost that people tell stories about. And to make matters worse, his house, the palace, is occupied.
By the suitors.
Us.
And there are, 108 of them?
108.
I mean, let's just pause on that number. That is not a few guys hanging around. That is an occupation.
It's an invasion. These are all the young, arrogant noblemen from the surrounding islands. They've decided Odysseus must be dead, so they have moved into his house to pressure his wife, Penelope, into marrying one of them.
And in the meantime, they're just eating everything.
They're literally eating Telemachus' inheritance. Day in and day out, they're slaughtering his father's livestock, his beeves, as the old translations call them, and drinking all the wine. It's a parasitic infestation.
And Telemachus is just
Yeah.
helpless. He just watches this happen.
He's totally paralyzed. He's this mopey, depressed young man who doesn't know how to be a man because the one model he was supposed to have, his father, is missing. He just sits there, fantasizing that his dad will walk through the door and kill all these guys, but he has no idea how to do it himself.
But Penelope, she's not paralyzed. The sources make it clear she is a perfect match for Odysseus in cunning. She's not just sitting there.
Oh, not at all. She is fighting a war with the only weapons a woman in her position has: intelligence and delay tactics. She's holding them off with this brilliant trick.
The shroud.
The shroud. She told the suitors, look, I'll marry one of you, I promise. Just let me finish weaving this funeral shroud for my father-in-law, Odysseus' dad, Laertes.
It's a very reasonable request. I'll get back to my love life as soon as I finish this knitting project.
Exactly, and it seems plausible. So during the day, she sits at her loom, very publicly, weaving. They can all see her making progress.
And then at night?
Then at night, by torchlight, she goes back and unpicks all the work she did that day.
That's incredible. How long does she keep that up?
3 years. For 3 years, she wove and unwove, just buying time. That is Matthias. That is pure cunning.
But the clock's running out. One of her maids betrays her, the suitors catch her, and now Telemachus is at his absolute breaking point. And that's when a god shows up.
Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and Odysseus' patron deity. She decides it's time to intervene. She comes down to Ithaca in disguise.
Which is a huge theme in this book, right? Disguises are everywhere.
Everywhere. Gods almost never look like gods. She disguises herself as an old family friend, a man named Mentis, or sometimes Mentor, and she basically gives Telemachus a divine kick in the pants. She tells him, stop moping, grow up, get in a boat, and go find news of your father.
So the kid actually does it. He goes on a little road trip.
A sea trip, yeah. First to Pylos to see the old King Nestor, and then to Sparta to see Menelaus and Helen.
Helen. As in the face that launched 1,000 ships, Helen of Troy.
The very same. And that scene in Sparta is just... it's so strange. She's back with her husband Menelaus, the man she abandoned for Paris. They're living this life of quiet, opulent domesticity. But it is so awkward.
I can't even imagine the dinner party conversations.
Well, they start telling stories about the war. And Helen does something incredible. She secretly drugs the wine.
She drugs the wine.
She slips a drug called nepenthe, which literally means no grief,
Mm.
into the mixing bowl so that they can all talk about the horrors of Troy without bursting into tears. It's a fascinating psychological moment.
Wow. But the point of this whole trip for Telemachus isn't really the news he gets, is it?
Not really. The news is pretty thin. They basically confirm, yeah, we hear your dad is alive, but he's trapped on some island. The real point of the journey is for him to mature. He has to learn how to talk to kings, how to command a ship, how to be a man in the world so that he can be a worthy partner to his father when or if he returns.
Okay, so that's the setup. The stakes are established. Ithaca is crumbling, the family is on the verge of ruin, and the hero is presumed dead. Now, we finally zoom the camera across the sea to the man himself. Segment 2, the hero in stasis.
Book 5,
Oh.
we finally meet Odysseus. And this is, I think, one of the most shocking introductions to a hero in all of literature. He is not fighting a monster. He's not commanding an army.
He's crying.
He's sitting on a rock, on a beach, on the island of Ogygia, staring at the sea and weeping.
And he's been there for 7 years, right? With a nymph named Calypso.
Yes. And we have to talk about the Calypso problem because it's a very complicated dynamic. She's a beautiful goddess who is utterly in love with him. She lives in this perfect magical paradise, and she has offered him the greatest gift imaginable, immortality.
He could live forever with her.
Never age, never feel pain, just be a god. And he is absolutely miserable. The text says he spends his nights with her by compulsion, but his days are spent on the beach weeping for home.
Okay, I have to push back a little here. This feels a bit hypocritical, maybe. He's crying all day because he misses his wife, Penelope. But he's sleeping with a goddess every single night for 7 years.
That is the eternal question with Odysseus, isn't it? He's a man of enormous appetites and contradictions.
I mean, is this really Nostos, this deep longing for home, or does he just want to have his cake and eat it too?
It's a fair point, but I think the text wants us to focus on the central choice he makes. He refuses immortality. Think about how profound that is. He could be an ageless, carefree god. And he says, no, I would rather go back to my aging wife, my rocky, difficult island, and my own eventual death.
He's choosing the human condition.
He's choosing the struggle. He's defining his identity as mortal. And the gods on Olympus finally decide to reward that choice. Zeus sends Hermes, the messenger god, down to Calypso with a message.
Party's over. Let him go.
Pretty much. And she is not happy about it. She gives this great fiery speech about the double standard, how male gods can sleep with whomever they want, but when a goddess takes a mortal lover, everyone gets upset. It feels very modern.
But she obeys. She helps him build a raft. And this is where we learn that the universe, or at least one very powerful part of it, really, really hates Odysseus.
Poseidon, the earthshaker, god of the sea. He's been away feasting with the Ethiopians, but on his way back, he spots this tiny raft with Odysseus on it, and he just loses his mind. He summons a monstrous storm.
And this isn't just a bit of bad weather. The raft is obliterated. Odysseus is tossed into the sea, nearly drowns.
He's only saved by another divine intervention. A sea nymph named Ino pops up and gives him a magic veil or scarf. It's very video game. Item acquired, Veil of Ino, +10 to not drowning.
She tells him, take off all your clothes, tie this around your chest, and just swim for it. And after days in the water, he washes up on the island of Scheria, the land of the Phaeacians.
And this brings us to one of the most famous examples of Xenia, or the sacred code of hospitality.
He wakes up on a beach, completely naked, crusted with salt and brine, looking like some kind of sea monster, and who finds him?
A teenage princess named Nausicaa, who is down at the river mouth with her maids, doing the laundry.
It's a disaster waiting to happen, but this is where we see that metis, that cunning intelligence, in action.
Absolutely. Any other man might have just jumped out and terrified them. But Odysseus, naked, holding a leafy branch to cover himself, delivers this incredibly smooth, flattering speech. He says, "Are you a goddess or a mortal?" He just completely charms her.
He's a smooth operator even when he's covered in seaweed.
Very. She's not scared. She's intrigued. She gives him clues and directions on how to approach her parents, King Alcinous's and Queen Arete.
Now, the Phaeacians they're a bit strange, aren't they? They're almost magical.
They are. They're sort of a fairy tale kingdom. They live in a land without war. They're related to the gods, and their ships are magical. They steer themselves and have no rudders. They're like the ultimate ferrymen between the magical world and the real world.
And they are the ultimate hosts. They follow the rules of Xenia to the letter. They take this shipwrecked stranger in, they give him a bath, they feed him the best food, give him the seat of honor, and they don't even ask his name yet.
That is the core of Xenia. You provide for the stranger first, and you ask questions later. It's a sacred duty. In a world without hotels or restaurants, your survival as a traveler depends on it. And besides, that stranger could always be a god in disguise.
But the truth has to come out eventually, and it comes out because of a song. This is where the story gets really self-referential.
It does. King Alcinous calls for his court bard, a blind singer named Demodocus. And what does Demodocus start singing about?
The Trojan War.
He sings about the famous quarrel between Odysseus and Achilles. He's singing this man's own life story back to him as entertainment. And Odysseus, hearing his own trauma, his own history, turned into a pop song, just pulls his cloak over his head and starts to weep uncontrollably.
It's like watching a movie about the worst time in your life. The king notices, of course. He stops the music and finally asks the big question. Stranger, it's time to tell us. Who are you? Where are you from? And why does the story of Troy cause you so much pain?
And this is the pivot point of the entire epic. This is the moment. Odysseus drops the disguise. He says, I am Odysseus, son of Laertes, known to the world for every kind of craft. My fame has reached the skies.
It's a total mic drop.
A huge moment. And then he settles in and says, let me tell you the story of my journey, which brings us to segment 3, the great flashback.
The part of the book that everybody actually remembers. The monsters, the magic, the adventure. But what's so interesting structurally is that Odysseus himself now becomes the narrator for the next 4 books.
Which should immediately raise a massive red flag for us. Is he a reliable narrator?
Right. He's telling this story to an audience, the Phaeacians, because he needs something from them. He needs a ship to get home, and he needs treasure.
And in his version of events, he is almost always the wise, brave leader, and his crew are a bunch of insubordinate fools who are constantly causing their own deaths. But all the other witnesses are dead. We only have his word for it.
That's a great point. For all we know, they just got lost in a storm for 10 years, and he made up all the monster stuff to sound cool.
It's a possibility you have to keep in the back of your mind.
Okay, so assuming he's telling the truth. He starts his story right after they leave Troy. First stop, the Cicones.
Which is basically just a pirate raid. They sack a town, take loot and women, but then his men refuse to leave. They want to stay on the beach and drink all the wine and have a barbecue.
And a relief force comes back and kills a bunch of them. Mistake number 1, lack of discipline.
Exactly. They escape from that and get blown off course to the land of the Lotus Eaters.
This one feels like a very different kind of threat.
It is. It's not a monster. It's a trap of apathy. The natives are friendly. They give this scouting party this flower to eat, and anyone who eats it completely forgets about home. They lose all desire to leave. They just want to stay there forever, chilling out and eating lotus.
It's the land of forgetting, the ultimate anti-Nostos.
It is. And Odysseus has to physically drag his weeping, screaming men back to the ships and tie them to the rowing benches to get them away.
Okay, so then they sail on and they find this beautiful green island. And across the water, they see another island with smoke rising from it.
The land of the Cyclops. And Odysseus, motivated by what he calls curiosity, but what also seems a lot like greed, decides he has to go check it out. He wants to see if he can get a gift, a Xenia gift.
This terrible, terrible idea. He takes a dozen men. They find a huge cave full of cheese and lambs. It's a shepherd's cave.
And his men say, okay, great, let's grab some cheese and go. And Odysseus says, no, let's wait for the owner to come back. I want to see what kind of guest gift I can get.
And the owner comes back, and it's Polyphemus, a giant one-eyed monster who is also a son of Poseidon.
And he is not interested in the rules of Xenia. He rolls a massive boulder across the cave entrance, trapping them inside. Then he just grabs 2 of Odysseus's men, smashes their heads against the rocks like puppies, and eats them raw.
It's just horrifying, and Odysseus realizes immediately he can't just kill them.
Right, if he stabs the Cyclops in his sleep, they're still trapped. No one can move that boulder. This is a classic Odysseus problem. Brute force, by, is a death sentence. The only way out is Matus.
Intelligence. And a pun. A really, really good pun saves their lives.
An incredibly sophisticated pun. First, Odysseus gets the Cyclops drunk on some super strong unmixed wine he brought with him. Polyphemus loves it, gets wasted, and asks Odysseus his name.
And Odysseus says,
My name is Nobody.
Nobody.
In Greek, the word is autos. So Polyphemus passes out drunk. Odysseus and his men take a giant olive stake, sharpen it, heat the tip in the fire until it's glowing, and then they all drive it right into the Cyclops' single eye.
Ugh. The sizzling sound is described in graphic detail.
It's gruesome. Polyphemus wakes up, blinded and screaming in agony. His neighbors, the other Cyclops, hear the noise and come running to the outside of the cave. They shout, "Polyphemus, what's wrong? Who is hurting you?"
And he screams back, "Nobody is hurting me!"
"Otis is hurting me." So his neighbors just shrug and go away. They say, "Well, if nobody is hurting you, then it must be a sickness from Zeus. You'll have to pray."
The pun worked.
But here's the even more brilliant part. The Greek phrase for nobody, Medinas, when you say it, sounds almost exactly like the word medes for cunning. So the text itself is playing a game. The Cyclops is being defeated by nobody and by cunning. It's a linguistic trick that perfectly defines Odysseus' character.
That is just genius. So they escape. They tie themselves to the bellies of the giant sheep, and when Polyphemus lets the flock out to graze in the morning, they ride out undetected. They get back to the ship. They're free. It's over.
It should have been.
But then Odysseus makes the single dumbest mistake of his entire life.
Hubris. Pure, unadulterated pride. He cannot stand the idea that this monster doesn't know who beat him. He needs to take credit. So as they're rowing away, just out of rock-throwing range, he shouts back to the shore.
"Hey, Cyclops, if anyone ever asks you who blinded you, tell them it was Odysseus, sacker of cities, son of Laertes, who lives in Ithaca."
He gives him his name, his title, and his home address.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He just doxed himself to a monster.
To the son of the god of the sea. And now Polyphemus has a name to put on his curse. He gets on his knees and prays to his father Poseidon, and he says, "Father, grant me this. Let Odysseus never reach his home. Or if he is fated to return, let him come back late in a bad state, having lost all his comrades on a foreign ship, and let him find a world of trouble in his own house."
And that prayer becomes the literal plot outline for the entire rest of the book.
Every single part of it comes true. Poseidon hears it, and the 10-year nightmare officially begins.
So they keep going, and the next stop is maybe the most frustrating part of the whole story for me. They meet Aeolus, the god of the winds.
And Aeolus is actually helpful. He loves Odysseus' stories. He hosts him for a month, and then as a gift, he gives Odysseus a bag made of oxhide. And inside that bag, he has sealed up all the stormy, contrary winds.
So only the gentle west wind is left out to blow them straight home to Ithaca.
It's a guaranteed, non-stop trip home, and it works. After 9 days, they are so close they can see Ithaca, they can see the smoke rising from the fires on the hearths. They are there.
But Odysseus, who has been at the helm for 9 straight days, finally falls asleep.
And his crew, who have been staring at this mysterious heavy bag the whole time, get suspicious. They start whispering to each other, "I bet that's gold in there. The captain got all this treasure from Troy and he's not sharing it with us."
This is such a crisis of management. It's about trust. If he had just told them, "Hey guys, this is a bag full of hurricanes. Whatever you do, do not open it," this would never have happened.
But he didn't trust them with the information, and their lack of trust in him proves fatal. They untie the bag. The winds all explode out in a massive tempest and blow them all the way back to square one, right back to Aeolus' island.
It's just heartbreaking. And Aeolus basically says, "Get out. You are clearly cursed by the gods, and I want no part of it."
After that, things get much, much darker. Their next stop is the land of the Laestrygonians.
These guys are not friendly.
No, they are giant, cannibalistic people. And unlike the Cyclops, they're organized. Odysseus cleverly moors his ship outside the main harbor, but the other 11 ships sail right in.
And the Laestrygonians just destroy them.
They stand on the cliffs, throw massive boulders down that smash the ships to splinters, and then they spear the men in the water like fish and carry them off to be eaten.
11 ships just gone. How many men would that have been?
Hundreds. Hundreds of men killed in an instant. Suddenly the fleet is gone. There was only one ship left, Odysseus' ship. They just barely escape with their lives.
They must have been completely traumatized. They limp away and land on the island of Aea, which is the home of Circe.
The witch goddess, famous for turning men into pigs.
Right, and she does. She lures a scouting party to her palace, gives them a drugged wine, and then taps them with her wand, and they transform into swine.
It's symbolic, of course. It's about men giving in to their base appetites, their gluttony, and losing their humanity. But Hermes, the messenger god, shows up to help Odysseus again.
He gives him a magic herb.
A magic herb called moly that makes him immune to her magic. So Odysseus goes to her palace, drinks her potion, and when it doesn't work, he draws his sword and threatens to kill her. She's terrified, submits to him, and agrees to turn his men back.
And then they stay for a year, again with the delays.
They do. It becomes a year of feasting and luxury. Odysseus becomes her lover. It's his crew who eventually have to come to him and say, Captain, remember home? Nostos. It's another one of those seductive traps that tempts him to just give up the journey.
But Circe is actually very helpful in the end. She tells him that to get home, he can't just sail there. He first has to go to the underworld, the House of Death.
He has to perform the Nikia, the ritual for consulting the dead. It's a classic part of the hero's journey. You have to face death itself, be reborn with new knowledge. He needs to get a prophecy from the blind prophet Tiresias.
And he sees some pretty heavy things down there in the land of the dead.
He does. The first soul he speaks to is his own mother, Anticlea. He didn't even know she had died. And she tells him she died of grief, of loneliness, just waiting for him to come home.
That's a massive guilt trip to lay on your son.
A heavy burden. Then he sees a parade of fallen heroes from Troy. He talks to Agamemnon. Now, for anyone who hasn't read the plays, Agamemnon had the absolute worst homecoming in history.
The worst. He got home from the war, and his wife Clytemnestra and her new lover murdered him in his bathtub with an axe.
So when Agamemnon's ghost talks to Odysseus, he's the bitter, resentful ghost of bad marriages past. He warns Odysseus, don't trust any woman, not even your wife. When you get home, land your ship in secret. Don't tell anyone you're back.
Which plants this seed of paranoia in Odysseus' mind that will be really important later. And then he sees the greatest warrior of them all. He sees Achilles.
And this is maybe the most important thematic moment in the entire poem. Odysseus sees him and tries to flatter him, saying something like, wow, Achilles, you were a king among men when you were alive, and now you are a king among the dead.
And Achilles is not having
He
it.
snaps back. He says, don't you dare sell me on death, Odysseus. I would rather be a slave on earth, a hired hand for a dirt-poor farmer with no land of his own, than be the king over all these breathless dead.
Wow. That completely repudiates the entire warrior ethos of the Iliad. The whole point of the Iliad was to choose a short, glorious life over a long, boring one.
And here is Achilles from beyond the grave saying, I chose wrong, it wasn't worth it. Any life, even the meanest life, is better than this. It's a total validation of Odysseus's quest. His goal, survival, life at all costs. Nostos is the right one.
So he gets the prophecy from Tiresias, which includes a critical warning about some magic cows, and he heads back to the world of the living. He has to pass the sirens.
The sirens are these creatures who sing a song so beautiful, so full of knowledge, that it lures sailors to crash their ships on the rocks. Circe told Odysseus how to handle it. He has his men plug their ears with beeswax so they can't hear anything.
But Odysseus, being Odysseus, has to hear the song. He has epic FOMO.
He does, so he has his men tie him tightly to the ship's mast. He orders them not to untie him no matter how much he begs. And he listens. He hears the song, screams and thrashes and begs to be released, but they just bind him tighter until they're safely past.
He wants the experience, but he engineers a way to survive the consequences. It's very him. Then comes the impossible choice.
Scylla and Charybdis. This is the ultimate no-win command decision.
It's the original between a rock and a hard place.
Literally, on one side of a narrow strait, you have Charybdis, which is a giant whirlpool that sucks the entire sea down 3 times a day. If you get caught in that, the whole ship is gone. Everyone dies.
And on the other side?
On the other side is Scylla, a monster with 6 heads and 12 legs who lives in a cave in the cliff face. If you sail too close to her, she will reach down and snatch 6 of your men, 1 for each head.
So the choice is guaranteed total destruction or guaranteed loss of 6 men.
That's the brutal math. And Circe's advice was clear. Hug the cliff. Better to grieve for 6 men than for the whole crew.
And that's what he does. But he doesn't tell his men what's about to happen.
He can't. He knows that if he told them 6 of you are about to be eaten, they would panic, drop their oars, and they'd all drift into Charybdis. So he keeps it a secret. He steers them past the cliff, and he watches as Scylla's head shoot down and snatch up 6 of his best men.
He says it was the most pitiable thing he ever saw, them screaming his name as they were lifted into the air.
It's cold-blooded leadership. Effective, but absolutely chilling.
And finally, they get to the last stop, Thrinacia, the island of the sun god Helios. And the warning from Tiresias was very, very clear.
Do not touch the cattle of the sun. It sounds like such a simple rule. Don't eat the magic cows.
But they get trapped on the island for a month by bad winds. Their food runs out. They're starving, reduced to catching fish and birds. And while Odysseus is off by himself praying and conveniently falls asleep again, his crew makes a fatal decision.
His second in command, Eurylochus, gives a speech. He says, it's better to die quickly by the wrath of a god than to waste away slowly from starvation. So they decide to slaughter the best of the sacred cattle.
And the text gets really creepy here. The meat actually moos on the spits while it's roasting.
The hides crawl on the ground. It's a series of horrifying omens. Helios is furious. He complains to Zeus, and Zeus agrees to punish them. As soon as they set sail again, Zeus hurls a thunderbolt that blows the ship to pieces.
And everyone dies. The entire crew is wiped out, except Odysseus.
He alone survives, clinging to a piece of the mast and keel. He gets sucked back towards the whirlpool Charybdis, survives by literally hanging from the branch of a fig tree over the abyss, and then drifts on the open sea for 9 days.
Until he washes up on Ogygia, the island of Calypso.
Bringing the flashback full circle, and that's the end of his story to the Phaeacians.
And they are just stunned into silence. They're so moved, they load him up with treasure, even more than he would have brought home from Troy, put him on one of their magic ships, and sail him home to Ithaca while he sleeps.
They leave him and his treasure on a beach, and then they sail away, completing their duty as hosts.
Which brings us to segment 4, the return. He's finally home, he's back on Ithaca, but he doesn't even recognize it at first.
No. Athena puts a thick mist over the land. She wants to control the situation. She needs to talk to him to make a plan, and she gives him his most important tool for the next phase, a disguise. She transforms him into a wrinkled, old, filthy beggar.
Because he can't just march into the palace and announce he's back. Agamemnon's warning is still ringing in his ears.
Exactly. He has to move like a spy. He needs to test the loyalty of his household. He needs to gather intelligence and find out who's with him and who's against him.
So his first stop isn't the palace. He goes to the hut of his swineherd, Eumaeus.
And Eumaeus is one of the most wonderful characters in the book. He's technically a slave, a pig keeper, but he is a model of loyalty and decency. He embodies perfect Xenia, even though he's poor.
He takes this dirty beggar in, gives him food and a place to sleep, and talks with great sadness about how much he misses his old master, Odysseus.
It must have been incredibly moving for Odysseus to hear this. But he stays in character. He doesn't reveal himself. Instead, he lies. He spins this incredibly elaborate, detailed, fake story about being a soldier from Crete who fell on hard times.
He seems to really enjoy the lying, doesn't he? It's his art form.
It's his art, but it's also his armor. It keeps him safe while he figures out who he can trust.
Meanwhile, Telemachus finally returns from his trip to Sparta. Athena guides him to avoid an ambush set by the suitors and tells him to go straight to the swineherd's hut.
And this is it. This is the first great reunion. Athena appears, lifts Odysseus' disguise for just a moment, and father and son see each other for the first time in 20 years.
And they weep. The text says they cry out like birds of prey, like eagles whose fledglings have been stolen from the nest by farmers. It's a fierce, sharp, violent grief and joy all mixed together.
It's an incredible moment. But notice, they don't just hug and go home. The moment the tears are dry, they start plotting. It's all business.
Okay, son, how many suitors are there?
About 108, Dad. Okay, and there's 2 of us, plus a pig herder. Let's make a plan.
They hatch the plan. Odysseus will go into the palace as the beggar. Telemachus will go ahead and, at the right moment, hide all the weapons that are hanging on the walls of the Great Hall.
So Odysseus, as the beggar, finally enters his own home, and this part is just brutal to read. He's treated like absolute garbage.
This is the great test of the suitors. It reveals their true character. They are arrogant, cruel, and they have no respect for the rules of Xenia. The lead suitor, a man named Antinous, actually throws a footstool at him. He hits him in the back, and Odysseus just takes it. The text says he stood there firm as a rock. He's just absorbing it all, gathering evidence, marking faces.
But there are these flashes of recognition. The first one is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The dog.
Argos. Oh, this part just kills me every time.
It breaks everyone's heart. His old dog, Argos, whom Odysseus trained as a puppy 20 years ago, is now ancient. He's lying neglected on a pile of dung, infested with ticks. But as Odysseus walks by, the dog hears his master's voice.
And he recognizes him, he wags his tail, he drops his ears, but he's too old and weak to get up.
And Odysseus sees him. He has to turn his head away to hide a tear so he doesn't blow his cover. He walks into the palace, and in that moment, Argos dies.
It's just devastating. It's the perfect symbol for the state of the kingdom. Loyal to the end, but neglected and dying.
The next moment of recognition is with his old nurse, Euryclea. Penelope, being a good hostess, tells the nurse to wash the beggar's feet, and as she's washing his legs, her hands pass over a familiar scar.
The scar he got from a boar hunt when he was a boy?
She knows it instantly. She drops his foot, the basin clatters, and she looks up and whispers, "You are Odysseus." And he reacts with shocking speed and violence. He grabs her by the throat, pulls her close, and snarls, "Keep quiet or I'll kill you with the rest of them when the time comes."
He is absolutely ruthless about maintaining his cover.
Utterly. And then comes the big one, the interview with Penelope. She summons this mysterious beggar to talk to him. And I just love the scholarly debate around this scene. Does she know it's him?
It feels like she has to suspect something, right?
It's the great ambiguity of the poem. She talks to him for a long time, testing him, asking him questions about Odysseus. He gives her a perfect description of the clothes Odysseus was wearing 20 years ago. Then she tells him about a dream she had. He, in turn, tells her a story confirming that Odysseus is alive and very near. And then, right after this intense conversation, she makes a sudden announcement.
The contest of the bow.
She announces to the suitors that she's finally ready to choose a husband. She will marry whichever man can string Odysseus's great massive bow and then shoot an arrow clean through the sockets of 12 axe heads lined up in a row.
The timing is just too perfect. A stranger shows up and says, "Your husband is coming home," and she immediately sets up a test that only her husband could possibly pass.
If she suspects the beggar is him, she's not just testing him. She's handing him the weapon he needs to start the slaughter.
Segment 5. The climax. The contest begins.
And it's a total failure. The suitors, these big, arrogant young men, can't even string the bow. It's too powerful, too stiff. They try heating it and rubbing it with grease to make it more flexible. They all try, and they all fail miserably. It's humiliating.
And then the old beggar pipes up and asks if he can have a turn.
The suitors are outraged. Antinous screams at him, "How dare you, you drunken tramp!" But Telemachus, stepping into his new authority, insists that the beggar be given a chance.
And Odysseus takes the bow. The description here is so beautiful. It says he handled it and strung it as easily as a musician stretches a string over a new peg on his lyre.
Effortless. He gives the bowstring a little pluck, and it sings with a sound like a swallow. And at that moment, Zeus sends a crack of thunder from overhead. The sign is given.
He knocks an arrow, he's still sitting on his stool, he doesn't even bother to stand up, and he draws the string back and lets it fly. Flip.
Straight through all 12 axe heads.
The silence in that hall must have been absolute. And then Odysseus turns to Antinous, the ringleader, who is just lifting a golden cup of wine to his lips. And Odysseus says, "The harmless game is over."
And he shoots him right in the throat. The arrow goes clean through his neck, and the cup drops from his hand as he falls.
And then it is just total chaos.
The suitors leap up, looking for the weapons on the walls, but they're gone. Telemachus hid them. They're trapped. The doors are locked. It's just them in a big room with a very angry demigod holding a death machine.
And it is a slaughter. We really need to pause on the level of violence here. This is not a clean Hollywood action scene.
Not at all. Homer's description is brutal and graphic. He compares the dying suitors to a pile of fish, tipped out of a net, gasping and twitching on the sand. The text says, the whole floor smoked with blood.
It's an extermination. Odysseus, Telemachus, and their two loyal servants, Eumaeus and a cowherd, kill every single one of them. There is no mercy. A priest begs for his life, and Odysseus just cuts his head off in mid-sentence.
But then, it gets even darker. The maids.
This is the part that, for a modern reader, is just incredibly difficult to stomach.
It is the darkest part of the hero's return. There were 12 servant girls in the palace who had been sleeping with the suitors, who had been disloyal to Penelope. After the battle is over, Odysseus orders these 12 women to clean up the hall.
Which is already a horrific psychological punishment. Go clean up the blood and gore of the men you just slept with.
And then, when they finish dragging the bodies out and scrubbing the floors, Telemachus takes them outside into the courtyard. He ties his ship's cable from one pillar to another, puts nooses around all of their necks, and hangs them all at once.
He says he won't give them a clean death. The poem describes their feet twitching for a little while, but not for long.
It's a moment that really shifts your sympathy, doesn't it? We've been rooting for Odysseus this whole time, but now he's standing in a river of his enemy's blood, overseeing the execution of a dozen women. Is this Nostos? Is this justice? Or has he just brought the savagery of the Trojan War home with him?
It's a deeply unsettling question. But the house is cleansed, the enemies are dead. Which brings us to segment 6, the resolution, and the final reunion with Penelope.
She was upstairs during the fight. The nurse, Euryclea, runs up to tell her the news. Odysseus is back. He's killed all the suitors. And Penelope? She doesn't believe it.
She's too smart for that. After 20 years of tricks and false hopes, she's not going to just accept it. She thinks it might be a god in disguise, playing a cruel joke. She needs proof. She needs a test that only the real Odysseus could pass.
She comes downstairs and just sits there, staring at this blood-spattered man. Telemachus gets angry with her. "Mother, why are you so cold?" But she's just being cautious. Finally, she comes up with the perfect test.
The test of the bed. This is my favorite part of the whole epic.
It's brilliant. She turns to the nurse Eurycleia and says, very casually, "All right, move the sturdy bedstead out of our bridal chamber and make it up with blankets for the stranger out here in the hall."
And this is what finally makes Odysseus lose his temper. He explodes. "Woman, that is a monstrous thing to say. Who moved my bed? No one could move that bed."
"I built that bed myself. I built our whole bedroom around a living olive tree that grew in the courtyard. I shaped one of the bedposts out of the living trunk of that tree. It's rooted in the earth. You can't move it unless you cut it down."
And that's the secret sign, the immovable bed. Only the two of them knew its secret.
It's the ultimate symbol of their marriage. It's living, it's rooted, it's unshakable. And in that moment, Penelope's defenses finally crumble. She dissolves into tears and runs to him. It's the enignoresis, the recognition.
They hold each other and weep. And Homer gives them this beautiful gift. He has Athena hold back the dawn. She literally makes the night longer for them so they have time to talk, to reconnect, to tell each other their stories.
Storytelling, again, is the thing that heals and reestablishes their bond. But the book isn't quite over. There's the strange final book, Book 24.
Right, the controversial ending. Because let's be realistic, you can't just slaughter 108 young noblemen and expect their families to just be cool with it.
Exactly. The fathers and brothers of the dead suitors form a mob. They want revenge. A civil war is about to break out in Ithaca. They march on the farm where Odysseus has gone to reunite with his old father, Laertes.
And it looks like it's going to be round two. Odysseus puts on his armor. He's ready to keep killing. He even kills the ringleader's father.
But then, just as the battle is about to begin, Athena and Zeus intervene directly. Athena, in disguise again, comes down and basically says, enough. She makes the families forget their anger, or she commands a peace treaty, and she tells them all to stop fighting. And they do. The poem just ends.
It feels very abrupt, doesn't it? A literal deus ex machina. And then a god came down and everyone was friends.
It does feel a little tacked on. Many ancient and modern scholars think the original poem might have ended with the beautiful reunion scene in Book 23. But Book 24 is trying to deal with the messy political reality. It's saying that the cycle of revenge is so powerful that you actually need divine intervention to stop it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just goes on forever.
So let's try to wrap all this up. We have traveled from Troy to the underworld and finally back to the bedroom in Ithaca. What's the big takeaway?
I think it really comes down to a redefinition of what a hero is. In the Iliad, a hero is a glorious warrior who dies young. In the Odyssey, a hero is a survivor. He's someone who endures suffering, who uses his mind, his metis, to navigate the random cruelty and the seductive comforts of the universe and just get home.
And we absolutely cannot ignore the role of women in that journey.
No. Compared to the Iliad, the female characters here are incredibly complex and powerful. Athena is the master strategist behind the whole operation. Circe and Calypso are formidable, dangerous goddesses. Nausicaa is brave and resourceful. And Penelope is the anchor of the entire story. She is every bit as cunning and enduring as Odysseus. She keeps the kingdom from collapsing for 20 years with nothing but her wits and a loom. She's the true match for the hero.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. At the very end, we have this peace, this restored order. But do you remember the full prophecy that Tiresias gave Odysseus back in the underworld?
Ah, yes. The part that says his journey isn't actually over.
Exactly. Tiresias told him, once you've killed the suitors and restored your house, you have to do one more thing. You have to take an oar from your ship and start walking inland.
You have to walk so far from the sea that you find a people who know nothing about it.
Right. You'll know you're there when a traveler stops you and asks why you're carrying a winnowing fan on your shoulder.
Because they've never seen an oar. They mistake it for a farming tool.
Exactly. And at that spot, he has to plant the oar in the ground, make a sacrifice to Poseidon to finally appease him, and only then can he go home to a peaceful death in old age.
It leaves you with this really disturbing thought, doesn't it? We have just spent 12,000 lines watching this man fight and bleed and suffer to get back to his own bed. He finally gets there, and the prophecy hanging over his head says, now leave again.
It suggests that for a man like Odysseus, a soldier, a wanderer, a traumatized survivor, maybe true peace is impossible. Maybe he's not built for the rocking chair.
Maybe the wandering is so deeply ingrained in him that he can never truly, fully settle.
And maybe, deep down, he actually prefers the monsters on the sea to the quiet of his own home.
That's the tragedy and the beauty of the man of twists and turns.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go avoid any mysterious bags of wind for a while. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Safe travels home.
See you next time.